Hi, it's John from North Star Nursery Garden and Home, your coastal gardener. We got seduced, so you're going to get seduced. We got this lovely email the other day from our Bromeliad supplier, and the images. I ended up buying only 6 varieties, but I could have easily bought 30. The coloration on these guys are off the charts. Unfortunately, all of the ones with a really unique coloration are only available in 6-inch pots. They are somewhat kind of rare, exceptional varieties, so they're also not terribly cheap. But if you're looking for a plant that's going to give you a lot of interest for a very long time, bromeliads are definitely a good choice. They do like to have bright light. So usually how I gauge that is a room you can read in comfortably during the day without turning on a light. So that is good bright light. They don't really want to have any direct sun. They might be able to handle a little bit of direct sun, probably up until 10 or 11, but after that, they would want to be in some dappled shade. Bromeliads are what we call epiphytes. Epiphytes are plants that grow on trees, but they do not attack the tree. It is just a symbiotic relationship. These guys usually grow in the crevices of trees in the jungle, so they're what we would call an understory plant. And because they grow in trees, they are what we would call garbage collectors. So when things fall from the sky, whether it's leaves, whether it's bird poop, whether it's fruit from a tree above, that drops into the pitcher, which is the center part of the plant. And we actually keep water in there also. But all of those nutrients drop in, and then that's what feeds the plant, which makes it then bloom. So bromeliads, traditionally, I think most, when the mother is done blooming, the mother will pass away eventually, sometimes not. But then what happens is this lovely little situation, we call it pupping. So when they shoot off these little babies like this, these are the pups. These are going to be the next generation. I had a customer once who brought me in a pot of a similar variety to this that she had gotten ages ago, but she had transplanted it. It was probably about a 10-inch pot, and it was full of all of these. And she was moving, and she said, "Can you please take this? Because I just don't want to leave it behind." And we took babies off of it left and right and had a field day. One of the things that they do talk about in propagation, if you want to take the babies off, you certainly can. And what you would do, and I'll make a bit of a mess here to get the point across. So you can see the stem coming out. So what you would want to do is at the very, very base of that to cut that off with a sharp knife or pruners. Then you would take this whole piece, including the greenery above, and you would submerge this from here down into soil. You could add rooting hormone if you want, and then you would keep it lightly moist, again in a bright room, no direct sun, and eventually that will root out and make other babies. The suggestion for the most part is to just put one plant per pot. And most of the suggestions say to start with a smaller pot. So 4-inch would probably be best, or what we might call a tall quart. The thing with bromeliads is because they're an epiphyte, their roots are not used to being really bogged down with really heavy soil. So what you would want to do if you're transplanting is to go ahead and use cactus mix. That would be what we would suggest. Just something that is really kind of light and fluffy. So if you wanted to, you could kind of make your own mix if you wanted to, with probably half a part of potting soil, half a part of orchid bark, and probably maybe a quarter of what am I thinking? Pumice. There it is. I don't love perlite because it floats around. Pumice gives you nice aeration without having the drifting effect. But if you have perlite, you can use perlite because you just want the soil to be really well draining. Also, you don't need to, they have very small root systems. So this is perfectly adequate for this plant for its whole life. And even when it starts to create pups, if you wanted to leave the pups in here, you can also cut away the mother plant when and if it starts to die out. When watering, you want to keep the soil lightly moist, more on the dry side, and water in the pitcher just a little. It doesn't have to be, raging full. You just want there to be some moisture in there. Now, there's, so some of the bromeliads bloom really obviously, and others don't. Do I have any? So this guy is starting to do it. It's a little hard to see, but if you look down into that trumpet, there's this little bud. That's the bloom. So when this is all done doing that, even though we look at this and we think this whole thing is the bloom, the flowers are actually down there. When this whole thing is done, it'll take a long time for this to kind of turn brown and die out. But once it does, you can go ahead and cut down to the base. And if the plant is still viable, leave it and continue to water and fertilize. And what will happen is you'll have these little offshoots that'll start to push. God, I wish you could get in here. There are, I'm going to try, because you can kind of see. I'm not sure if you can see in there where my finger is. Mm-hmm. There are babies already coming. Mm-hmm. So this plant has 3 new plants already starting to emerge. So soon this will be even bigger than it was originally. Now, fertilizing. So bromeliads don't want a really high-hitting nitrogen, and they don't want a lot of fertilizer to start with. So when going to fertilize, you only want to use whatever you're using, and I'll give you 2 options, at quarter strength. Okay, so if it's supposed to be a teaspoon to a gallon, it's a quarter teaspoon to a gallon. You can use the Maxi 1616. That'll work just fine. You can also use this orchid fertilizer that we carry, which has a low nitrogen. This is a synthetic. We don't carry a lot of synthetic fertilizers, but sometimes we need synthetic fertilizers to get the numbers right for what the plant needs. So that's a great option too. I would say probably fertilizing maybe once a month during the spring-summer season, and then during the winter probably don't bother at all. Here's one of the fun things. So I'm going to use this as an example because it's smaller. This is another bromeliad. This is Vresia saundersii. Just love the foliage color. It's a little subtle. It has these kind of maroon spots that I think will become more predominant as it gets bigger. So this guy we're going to use as our example for how to get the pups to bloom after the mother is done. So there's this whole thing. So in nature, when they have all these things dropping down into their trumpets, what's happening is that whole process of breaking down, and it creates ethylene. I always thought it was a different gas, and when I was doing research, it was actually ethylene. So what you do, you have a choice, an apple, a banana, or a kiwi fruit, sliced up. This is always cuckoo to me. placed on the soil around. Do not leave the plant really wet and do not leave any water in the trumpet. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take a clear plastic bag, and you're going to put it over it, and you're going to tie it closed so that you're creating, I'm not sure if you can kind of see that. So you're creating kind of a little greenhouse effect. You want there to be no air seepage, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to leave it in this bag for 7 to 14 days. I would err on the side of 14 days. And what happens is as the fruit starts to break down, it creates those gases that are necessary for them to rebloom again. So a little trick of the trade. This is actually something, talk about how old I am. I learned this method when I was 14 at the nursery that I worked at back in the old days, Cost Plus Nursery in Marin. That's old school. And we did a lot of houseplants back then because it was very, very popular. So we did a lot of bromeliads, and this was something that a bromeliad grower actually taught me. So a great way of getting them to do what they need to do. The other thing I wanted to do, and Dave just panned across them, is mention that we just got from the same supplier a huge selection of new tillandsias. And I am in love. This is Rainforest Red, I believe. And that coloration is just incredible. The other one that's really pretty too is this one with these kind of peachy, rosy. This is Tillandsia capitata roja. Here's another one. I love these. Just such a great bulbous texture. It's really cool. Tillandsia caput medusa. There's so many neat ones. This is really cute. Looks like a little mohawk. Anyway, so we got a bunch of them in. We have grays, we have reddish orange, we have pinks, we have lots of different colors. Some of them, and I think, oh, here it is. I didn't see it this morning. Check that out. Isn't that totally awesome? It's blooming. She's blooming. She's so pretty. I just love plants, clearly. All right, you guys. I hope you had a great 4th of July. Again, we've been kind of warm, so keep your eye on watering those plants, and especially those hanging baskets. And don't forget to stay hydrated as well. I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will look forward to seeing you at the nursery.